Anybody out there? Can you hear me okay? All right. It's getting better, I think. I'm getting closer here. Sorry about this. All right. Can you hear me? All right. All right. Hello? I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? All right. I'm just going to assume that you can hear me. If anyone's out there and has access to their chat and can let me know that my voice is actually coming through, that would that would be helpful. My setup is all messed up today, just because most people know that we're getting ready to move, and so we're getting all kinds of things set up here. And anyway, today we are going to look at Mark 3. 20 through 35. Yeah, just let me if you come on, just let me know if you can hear me. Anyway, Mark 3, 20 through 35. Let me read that here. All right, here we go. And the crowd came together again, so that they could not even eat. When his family heard it, they went out to restrain him, for people were saying, "He's gone out of his mind." And the scribes who came down from Jerusalem said, "He has Beelzebub, and by the rulers of the demons he casts out demons." And he called them to him and spoke to them in parables. "How can Satan cast out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house will not be able to stand. And if Satan has risen up against himself and is divided, he cannot stand. But his end has come. But no one can enter a strong man's house and plunder his property without first trying to stop the strong man. Then indeed the house can be plundered. Truly I tell you, people will be forgiven for their sins and whatever blasphemies they utter, but whoever blasphemes against the Holy Spirit can never have forgiveness, but is guilty of the eternal sin, for they had said, 'He has an unclean spirit.' Then his mother and brothers came, and standing outside, they sent to him and called him. A crowd was sitting around him, and they said to him, 'Your mother and your brothers and sisters are outside asking for you.' And he replied, 'Who are my mother and my brothers?' And looking at those who sat around him, he said, 'Here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does the will of God is my brother and sister and mother.'" Yeah, all right. So a lot going on in this text. It's kind of a bigger text than usually we tackle. But first thing to notice is that typical of Mark, he starts off with this thing about the family coming and wanting to stop Jesus from what he's doing. And then he throws in this other intervention by the folks coming from Jerusalem with the parable about Satan and the strong man and that sort of thing. And then he comes back to the family at the end. If you're reading through Mark's gospel, you'll see this kind of pattern occurring over and over again, where he starts a topic or starts a story, throws something in the middle, and then adds another, then finishes off a story at the end. Probably the most famous one is when Jesus is called to heal the daughter of the important person. I can't remember exactly what his title is. And he's on his way, and then that's when the woman with the issue of blood, so to speak, comes up and touches his garment, and they have that whole scene. Then it goes back to the rulers, the synagogue ruler, I think is who he is, his daughter. So that break in between, and Mark is trying to say that there's some connection between these two ideas when he does this. So in this particular case, you have his family. Then you have this the intervention by the elite folks coming from Jerusalem to try to paint Jesus as working as an agent of the devil, basically, or as the agent of evil. And then you go back to the family again. So I just wanted to say a couple things about this. Again, it's hard to miss kind of the political, if that's the right word, the real world implications of this for what's going on here. Basically, you have two of the biggest kind of systems of socialization, the two biggest ways that people learn how to be in the world. One, your kind of immediate family that helps shape you and mold you, often very, in a positive way, but sometimes there's question marks as well. And then you have the family, and then you also have the representatives of the state or of the religious tradition and that in that group. So Ched Myers and company in I think it's in Say to This Mountain, talk about domesticating family and dominating state. Those two powers are at play in this story. The family wanting Jesus, for his own protection and maybe, for their family reputation as well, wanting him to kind of relax a little bit on the, on the confrontation with the elders and the rulers, and also riling up the crowd and getting the crowd in a spirit of kind of defiance against the folks from Jerusalem and the rulers of that area as well. So Jesus is stirring things up, and his family is concerned for his safety, rightfully so, and perhaps maybe there's some self-concern there. And then we see in the midst of that as well, this the groups from Jerusalem, the scribes coming to basically accuse Jesus of operating and doing what he's doing on behalf of Satan, Beelzebub, and there's all kinds of names thrown around here. And I think, it's interesting because for us in the kind of mainstream middle class church, the real world implications of this story and what it means to be kind of that, the group of people on the outside of power, maybe even subjected to the negative side of state power. That kind of reality is foreign to most of us. We don't see it. Sometimes we see it now because there's so much access to phones and social media, and we get to see pictures of the dominating side of the state when it comes to police officers killing black, brown, and we'll also poor whites, mostly poor folks of all colors, but we see mostly the tragedy and kind of injustice of the murder of Black and brown people the most. But we don't often, we in the church, especially from kind of a middle class position, don't see, we don't face what Jesus and his disciples are facing in this moment that often. We don't come through that type of being on the outside of the elite kind of dominant position in the society. And so it's hard for us to get a picture and understand this story in some ways. We come from the side of the people from Jerusalem. That's our kind of it's our position in society more often than not. Yeah, I was going to pull. I'm just reading Mark's comment. I'm gonna put it up so that we're both reading it at the same time. Yeah, right. I think you're right. This, we get a strong sense of what Jesus is about, and it is in conflict. It challenges even the most intimate other options of how to live and be in the world, like his family, all the way to the most kind of powerful options for how to be in the world from the state. And the focus is maintained on Jesus and where he's leading us and directing us. And Mark is certainly trying to say that Mark in the Gospels is trying to, through this story of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the good news of Jesus Christ, to say that this person has come to show us a way to be in the world. This person, Jesus, who we're telling the story about, if we maintain our focus on how he lived and was in the world, we get a strong sense of what the Spirit is calling us to be and to do in the world. And that's what this whole thing that we always get so tripped up about, with the kind of blaspheming of the Holy Spirit as the unforgivable sin, which occurs in a few different places in the Bible. But it's clear here in this story that Jesus comes and is working in this vein of uplift, liberation, healing, exercising of all that's evil, binding the strong man so that people can be liberated. Someone was talking about this text from Isaiah 49, which says, "Liberate the prey of the strong and rescue the captives of the tyrants." Right. So Jesus is fulfilling this text from Isaiah 49 as part of what he's doing is this project of liberating those who are oppressed and the prey of the strong, rescuing the captives of the tyrants. This is what he's going. This is why the crowds are flocking around him, because this is what his project is. And of course, that runs directly counter to the elites and the powers of the time. So they want to say that his motivation, what's behind what he's doing, is that he is, he's part of the axis of evil. He's part of the, he's a terrorist, right? He's the, if we're back in we might be entering a new, maybe we're in a new Cold War now. He's the communist. He's the, if you can put the label on the person who is doing some liberatory act, if you can put the label on them, then people people should be afraid to be associated with him. And I think that this is why it's so interesting that the family dynamic is tied in with this accusatory move by the elite, because part of what happens is that the people closest to you get in these scenarios, the people close to you get anxious about the way that you're challenging the dominant systems and the dominant structures. They want you to calm down, and sometimes they're asked to even betray you and label you as well. We see this with many movements for liberation. That's an intuit. All right. We'll see what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about that. That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, where to go with Bernie? I'm gonna put that in my back pocket for a second. They certainly tried to make him out as much as more radical, right, than he was, in order as a dismissive move. That's for sure. Yeah, no doubt about that. Oh, well, and we see what kind of internal conflict the narrow spectrum of options for people's liberation that were represented by Bernie, Biden, and then we can go to Trump if we want to, but the drama and kind of backstabbing and infighting that all went on around even that narrow amount of political options, gives you a picture of what this might be like if you actually have someone who's authentically, really challenging and has a movement of people behind them, going toward actual liberation and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, and what I was saying somewhere back in there was that this idea of blaspheming the Holy Spirit as the unforgivable thing is there's a great quote in Binding the Strong Man talking about this, and it says I'm gonna put Mark's comment up while I read this, then I'll come back to it. The blasphemy resulting from bad apologetics will always be pardonable. What is not pardonable is using theology to turn real human liberation into something odious. The real sin against the Holy Spirit is refusing to recognize with theological joy some concrete liberation that is taking place before one's very eyes. So the real sin against the Holy Spirit is refusing to recognize with theological joy some concrete liberation that is taking place before one's very eyes. And that's actually Juan Luis Segundo. I think he wrote Jesus the Liberator. I don't know what book this is from, but yeah, I'll get. I think that's what's really happening. When Jesus is talking about this, is that there's a move. The Spirit is always moving. The Spirit is always leading us to things, and it's one thing to misunderstand it. It's one thing to to be ignorant of what's going on, but it's another thing to see and actually watch authentic movement of the Spirit happening among you and label it the work of the devil, or label it as some unclean spirit that's at work. That's unforgivable, because you can't be a part of what the Spirit is doing if you're calling what the Spirit is doing evil, right? And avoiding it. Let's see, Mark. Yeah, does such a view of discipleship lead to isolation? Well, interesting, right? Because this is how the text ends, right? The text ends with Jesus' family outside calling to him, saying, "Come out to us." come back to your kinship group, come back to the people, come back and be a part of this family, right? But Jesus says, who are my who's my mother, who's my brother, who's my sisters? It is the people who are doing the will of God, who are my family, who are my kinship group. So yeah, I mean, I think it's the degree to which we are optimistic about the number of people prepared to do God's will, about how isolating this understanding of discipleship is. I mean, and clearly throughout the rest of Mark, we'll see that, like, there's a lot of forgiveness in attempting to follow the Spirit and just not being very good at it, and not being 100% consistent with your with how you follow Jesus. But those who are seeking after the following of the Spirit and trying to do God's will are the ones that Jesus is trying to encircle himself with. Yeah, I mean, I think inevitably it becomes I don't know. It's difficult because you have to develop this kind of stringent, serious way of approaching your discipleship if you're trying to actually, follow in this Jesus way. But at the same time, you're always trying to be open and embracing of everyone around who is hurting and struggling and needing the world to be the way it's supposed to be. That I don't know, it's kind of it's like a both and situation, really. Like you're isolating in some way, but you're also embracing a whole group of people. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, I missed the second part of what you were saying. I have to say, Mark, that I really like your phrase, the shalom community. I've noticed that a few different times. I'm very happy, very happy with that phrasing. And I wish, I don't know if you guys can see how messy things are with me trying to move stuff around. I was looking for, shoot. I'll bring it. I'll try to get it for next week. I think the book is called Shalom in the Community of Creation, something like that. Indigenous theologian wrote the book and talks about this, the idea of shalom in the Bible, and also this conception of harmony, living in harmony that comes from the indigenous community from this. I don't want to say this part of North America, I guess. Maybe. The labels start to be confusing when you are trying to embrace that perspective to some degree. But yeah, I think this is the hard thing about all these, kind of these, I think about the work that I did in the book of Revelation. It's that same kind of like such a hard line about who's in and who's out, and in one way, if you try to be the witness to the gospel of Jesus that John in Revelation is calling you to, it feels like you can only inevitably end up on the the island of Patmos by yourself, but but in the end, like it's an exclusion of those who want to. It's an exclusion. It's isolating yourself away from those who want to, participate and expand the realm of Satan, right? Like you do need to kind of let those people know that that they're living in the wrong house and that it's going down. Yeah, no, I appreciate that those comments there. That's helpful. That helped me get through this tough time of trying to figure out how to work this technology without my normal stuff here. Yeah, I wanted to bring a real world kind of example into this that I don't know. I keep finding these real world examples that might get me into more trouble, but one of the things I was thinking about in this is I don't know if you've been there's kind of been a little news coming out recently about what they're calling the vaccine apartheid, basically, where richer countries are hoarding all more vaccines than even their population can use, while you have African nations, many countries in Latin America. Actually, Deb was just telling me that she heard of someone whose cousin or something from Peru flew up to Miami to get a vaccine and flew back, and will have to fly up again, obviously, when it's their second round, to come back up because there weren't enough vaccines. And I mention this because I think about what I think about the island of Cuba, who's working on their own vaccine, would, if it wasn't for blockades and just complete economic isolation of them by our country, would probably already have a solid vaccine, and who from the very beginning have sent their doctors out all over the Caribbean and all to places in Africa to help fight this virus. And while they're doing that, while they're working to bring medical help to these nations that can't afford it and can't and have trouble, during Trump's era, and they were we went back to calling them basically, like, those doctors going out were labeled terrorists, from being sent by a state that sponsors terrorism. And so you have basically doctors trying to help with a global pandemic being labeled terrorists, going out, and this being used as an excuse to to continue a blockade and all of this stuff. And it makes me think of this this story of you have the elite. They want to label these people actually trying to work for the healing and liberation of people. They want to label them as the evil people in the world. All the while they're hoarding the vaccine. They're convincing countries that they shouldn't. I think there was a story I heard today about the United States bragging that they made sure that Brazil didn't get any vaccines from Russia, because that would be somehow against our global interests. So while people die in Brazil from not having vaccines, we know that at least they didn't get their vaccine from the Russians. It's an odd world that we live in. And when it comes, though, down to the simple fact of human life and helping humans live and flourish, there seems to be a clear line that you can see that leads to more shalom and flourishing in different communities, and there's one that leads to, okay, you remain the most powerful nation, but you watch, a bunch of people die in the meantime. I think that it's clear which side is trying to navigate according to some spirit, of goodness in the world, and some that's after something different, maybe along the lines of greed and imperial domination. That's my trouble-causing little speech there for the end of the end of the show. But yeah, so I think, let's see, we have. This is terrible. I didn't even look ahead to what we do next time. Chapter. I didn't even get into. Hopefully it'll. I think the next chapter. I think there's another. I didn't even get into the whole. There's a whole chapter on this in Dr. Blunt's book, and I didn't get to it. But next time around we'll get there. Yeah, so we move into the first kind of teaching unit, I guess, next time in chapter 4. So we'll get into parables a little bit, and that should be fun. I got to tell you all that I'm getting behind with all the stuff I'm doing. I'm getting further and further behind on how much work I actually get done beforehand for this. So. Thanks for hanging out, and I'm going to keep. I'll keep trying. So we'll do 4. I don't know how far we'll go. We'll start with chapter 4 at least. Chapter 4 next time around. Thanks, Mark and Marcy, and whoever else is out there. Good seeing you all. Good talking to you, and we'll see you next time.